The Becoming Da Vinci Show is sponsored by the Kinetic Experience, where entrepreneurs go to have even more success and more fun in their business and life. Becoming Da Vinci.
So to learn more about the Becoming Da Vinci Show, visit us at www.becomingdavinchishow.com, where you can learn all sorts of stuff about Leonardo da Vinci and what we are doing to correlate his life and his example with modern day entrepreneurs and self-directed learning.
Becoming Da Vinci.
In your work that you do today, in your art and in your music and in your teaching, how does your imagination play a role in it? Do you have a strong imaginative concept to your creations, or is it just like you see something and it's almost like I see this, so I'm going to create it, or is it just like a story that comes to mind?
No, I think that's a great question, but I want to actually read, because that's where she's going.
Yes. Okay, sorry.
It's exactly the next question I'll have for you.
Accidentally right on topic. Well done.
Always right on topic. So never.
No.
But this one, it worked out. So as I describe Leonardo's traits, being innovative, wildly imaginative, passionately curious, creative across multiple disciplines, experimental, observative, strong-willed, and highly ambitious, what comes to mind as you think back on your journey?
Man, you don't write easy questions, I'm telling you.
We're not teachers.
Man, there's no multiple choice here, bro.
Well, a lot of the things that Leonardo da Vinci was interested in, I myself am definitely interested in, and I am a dabbler, and that's something that my mom says about herself also, is I'm not entirely sure that I need to be a master of everything that I pursue. Mm-hmm. What I find is that I would like to reach some comfortable plateau, and then I often want to try something new and include it into this quiver of skills. So I feel like the passionately curious element is something that I've done. I jump around a lot in my life, and I do a lot of different things that otherwise seem unrelated. I really enjoy art, and I enjoy math, and I enjoy science, I enjoy philosophy, I enjoy architecture. I'm not good at music, but I sure like music. I feel like a lot of those characteristics of Leo da Vinci are things that we should try and cultivate in our youth the same way you were describing. And I feel like I benefited from some of them. I don't know if I mean, like I was saying before our interview, that's a lofty goal. Becoming Leonardo da Vinci, like holy mother of pearl. I guess, but aiming high is the way we should really go, right?
Yes.
So I would look at that description of Leonardo da Vinci as something that I should try and emulate in the future. I'm not sure it's something I can comfortably say or accurately say has been a big part of my past. Like I said, I'm very opaque still to myself. I don't even know what inspires me artistically. I don't spend a lot of time going to galleries. I love other people's art, but I don't find right after I see other people's art is when I'm most inspired. I feel like a lot of my inspiration seems to blossom out of I don't know where, shadowy regions in my mind that I just don't fully see, which is why there's a Netflix documentary on an artist, a Polish artist, Zukalski.
Oh, never mind. Sorry.
Zukalski, and he was the first artist I've ever heard. I'm not saying I'm a history buff, so I probably just haven't heard of other artists who said this also, that his inspiration always came from purely inward. It was always inside himself where his inspiration came, not from elsewhere. And I didn't even really consider that was a possibility before I heard that opinion of his. And now I'm like, I just realized I have no idea where my inspirations come from. So I'm struggling with what that might mean. And that makes it especially hard to translate to other people. It's hard to show somebody how they can become inspired, say a student, when I'm not precisely sure how I get inspired right now. That's still something I'm trying to really investigate.
Awesome.
Wow.
So before I relinquish the next question to Janica, so I'm the focus right now, right?
Yes, all about
So I'm going to tell you about something we do. We call it My Kinetic Journey. It's just a hashtag that we use. And we use it to document the journey through our entrepreneurship, or in your case, art, and just show that there's this process that we go through, right? Life is, in our careers or our art, our passion, whatever you want to call it, it's evolving and it's changing. And some days it's difficult, some days it's easy, sometimes it's very clear, sometimes they're cloudy. And so we just use that hashtag. So as if that's something that appeals to you.
Say once more, what's the hashtag?
My Kinetic Journey.
My Kinetic Journey.
Yeah. So anyways.
So we're trying to create a community and a movement behind the backstory to your passion and purpose in life and how you express that. Like Leonardo expressed his curiosity in his life through his work. But not many people know that he only did 15 paintings. I still can't get that right. Or that he didn't complete most of them. Or that he did so much of his theater work was his main focus for so much of his life, or that he built weapons. Like, so many people don't know that that's really what his passions were in.
Well, we go backward and say a lot of what we know about Leonardo da Vinci are because we have his notebooks. Right. So if you think about it that way, his notebooks, his journals, like that's his journey is in those documents. And we don't really do that very often. Sometimes we just show the final result. And I know for example, in your artwork on Instagram, one of your videos, you have a lot of videos. Anyways, one that I remember and I saw was that you actually show the layering process of the creation, right? So it's that thing. It's not like, here it is, but there's a sequence to it. There's the steps. And the reality is, though, what we saw in that video is just a sliver of all of the journey needed to get to that point even. Right? So anyways, just want to share that with you as we go through, and we'll talk about wealth, I guess.
Yeah. So we've created this assessment tool, and it's basically to help people have an optimal life, figure out what their optimal life is. And we call it the wealth wheel, kinetic wealth wheel, and wealth being an abundance of resources, money, energy, all of the things you need to live your optimal life, not necessarily just money, right? But health and all of it. And so it contains 10 key areas that are broken down into smaller. So there's a total of 20. So there's 2 areas per main category. And when going through it and thinking, like beforehand, I would have researched it, and knowing you more, I would have been able to really pull out, okay, these are the areas I really see that you're high in. Not knowing you and meeting you just now, it's like, it's actually kind of fun for me to be able to say, like, to identify those with you. So obviously vulnerability, that's huge. Creativity, huge. Like for us, creativity is showing it in your skills and in your work. It's not like, I believe that, and we believe that creativity, if you're not expressing it in your work, you need to get a different job. Like your job, your career, where you spend most of your time needs to be creative.
Yeah, we look at these things as resources, not traits necessarily. So it's a resource. Creativity is a resource. Vulnerability is a resource.
Intentionality
is another one that we have. Enrichment is one. Love is one. Fun is one. So, as I think on your areas, like she said, vulnerability, obviously creativity, but I think fun, enrichment, and love is something that really is something that you really incorporate into your life very intentionally, actually.
Yeah, well, and purpose, like it comes out in your different ways of your purpose. And I don't even know that you have that defined. We don't know what it is, but I see all these different elements of what I'm experiencing through you and seeing this purpose. Like you have this light about you, and this energy of sharing it. And it's like,
he likes the compliments. Keep them going.
I know. Thank you.
but it's like inspiring. It's magnetic, and so you have such a aura about you that you could pull people into them building up their world through your example of who you are. And you don't see that in a lot of people. And I think it's awesome. It's so cool to get to experience, and it was fun.
Thank you. Oh, you're so kind. Well, you're right. I've been practicing vulnerability a lot. I think the vulnerability is really, really important. And I live the gig life. One of my professions is that I teach paint classes through an organization called Paint the Town. And through Paint the Town, I'll go to a group, an already assembled group, and they all know each other, and I provide the supplies and I teach them how to paint something. And what I love most about that job, and was what it kept me doing it, because most of the paintings are pretty, rooted. It's like, oh, here's a color gradient, and then here's a silhouette of a tree and some people in a boat, and people are like, oh my god, like.
Are they drunk while they're doing it? They're drinking their wine while they're painting.
That paint and sip. It is precisely that about half the time. But what I really enjoy about the job is how vulnerable everybody is suddenly forced to be. Because here's a thing, painting, that the overwhelming majority of people do not do on the daily like I do, or, weekly at least. And suddenly I get to see all these people who have no expectation of what should come out. They're super vulnerable, and then they're laughing about it. They're all so happy about being vulnerable at this moment, because while they're vulnerable, they also don't have expectations. I think it's vulnerability and expectations in combination that really creates the block for most people. Mm-hmm. Because if you're going to pursue something new, if you're going to be creative, which I think is a crucial part of the human condition, is creating things. That's why we like interior design and why we like to dress ourselves up just right. Those are all creation avenues, and they're kind of piecemeal, so they're low pressure. But if you're going to do something that's a higher pressure, a more sincere and thorough expression of who you are, you're going to be really vulnerable in the process. Yeah. And we just don't feel comfortable with vulnerability anymore. And I think I'm not trying to bring gender politics into it, but men need to learn how to be more vulnerable, especially.
Actually, the funny thing is that in the studies by Brene Brown, who's really pushing this discussion around vulnerability, he actually says very specifically that the men that have done these great things in the past are actually expressing vulnerability, which is exposure and risk into the unknown. So if you think about those famous soldiers that are at Iwo Jima with the flag that they're planting, like, they were hyper vulnerable, and so we think of vulnerability, we don't understand the true definition of it, but it is that exposure to the unknown, putting themselves out in a physical, emotional, or mental unknown state where pain can happen. And of course the risk associated. So if you think about it, storming a beach is one of the epitomes of being vulnerable. So we just haven't linked that in our mind, because now I think the stories that she's telling and the way she's telling this actually allows us to say, no, I want to be vulnerable because I want to be like those dudes,
Yeah, but I feel like there's a difference between being physically and emotionally vulnerable.
Well,
and especially and maybe you disagree. I don't have to.
I totally agree.
We totally agree.
I feel like there's like this.
They're in the same avenue, though.
There's like this macho romanticism that's associated with being physically vulnerable and being okay with it. Like the Iwo Jima statue is amazing, but it's also like really badass. Like the fact that they're like, I can just do this and there's bullets whizzing over my head. That's vulnerable, but it's also badass. And I feel like that's it's just a different variety of challenge. I don't mean to put them on a hierarchy, and I think there's something very valid about being physically vulnerable and being able to handle that. That's amazing. But I feel like emotional vulnerability is more where we're lacking.
For men, yes.
Well, and I would say
in general, we don't really like to be vulnerable, and for that reason, we will forego the opportunity to advance ourselves as human beings, so that we never end up in that position.
That's the lesson that we all have to learn. That is exactly the lesson. Is that lack of vulnerability, whether it's physical, you don't get a Medal of Honor, or it's emotionally, you don't get to connect with other people, or whatever. They end up having the same ultimate result, is that you don't achieve the growth and an advancement that you're hoping for.
So I take it as, in order to live your purpose and shine as a unique individual, you have to accept who you are as an individual, which also means you have to be vulnerable that other people might not accept you or embrace you or give you any validation. And in that also is that, I'll take myself for example. I'm pretty sure my purpose on earth is to push against the boundaries and to really, it's really, it really is to show that there's another way. People say this is the way it is. I'm like, yeah, I don't think so. What about XYZ though? Let's look at all the other options. Like for me, it's about fighting the status quo. So that is not always a lovable thing. It's not always accepted. It causes conflict in relationships. I have 4 children who are at some point going to need massive amounts of therapy. It's just the way, but that's me. And I have to be vulnerable and accept that as me. And I have to be a risk taker to go out and do it. Yeah. And I have to be able to stand in confidence and still love myself when someone bashes me, right? But that's what we each have to go through. And it's such a hard lesson. I'm 45 I'm turning 46 this year. It's been years of battling that and accepting that I have a voice and that it is different, and that's okay. Definitely embracing the role model mentality of being a rebel, of being a misfit. I've never felt like I fit into anything. I just didn't understand why I did it. But as I've gotten older, I embrace that. And I'm like, I'm okay with being a rebel. I'm okay with being a misfit. I'm okay with all of that. That's me. And when I look back on Leonardo's life, that was him. He didn't give a shit. He was like, this is what I'm curious about. This is what I want to do. This is what I'm going to learn. And I'm going to do it. And I'm going to spend years studying why light refracts here and does this and whatever. And like, who does that? It's crazy.
And not finish a lot of paintings, bro. By the way,
not finish anything.
Super ADD, by the way. No, seriously. If you go back and go, that's why he's so few paintings attributed to him.
Yeah.
Because he didn't finish most of them.
So it sounds like he had a pretty good record. If he was known for 2 or 3 out of 15, that's pretty badass, right? That's a high.
But that was the thing. Like, he just didn't care, and he lost money off of it. But it was, for him, it was, I'm just going to follow what I'm curious about and what brings me joy and fulfills my passion, my purpose. And once I'm done with that, I'm not going to finish it. I don't care. There's nothing left in it for me.
That's right. It's really interesting. Super awesome.
Yeah.
So we're going to put this out there. If you know anybody that should be covered on this show, please let us know. We're looking for people that are innovative, whether they have a business or not. We're looking for self-directed learners, innovative people who are always learning and trying new things.
Thank you for tuning in to the Becoming Da Vinci show. Join us next time as we learn more about Leonardo and modern day entrepreneurs.
Becoming Da Vinci.